Hide it there. Good. All right. So everyone.
Oh, well, Larry can
That's my Police Department Appleton Association president. I
be.
mean
Yes.
treasurer. My secretary. They must be working.
Yeah, they are. That's okay.
Oh, there you go.
I think the corn's taken out. Yeah, that'll be fine. Yep. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this year's City of Troy Memorial Day ceremony. I'm Russ Harden, and I'll be your MC for this event. Memorial Day is a federal holiday for remembering the people who died while in service to our country and our armed forces. I find it fitting today to read an excerpt from a poem that was written by retired Navy SEAL Lieutenant Commander Jack Willink. Remember me. I was a warrior. But also remember that I was not only a warrior, I was not just a soldier, a sailor, an airman, or a Marine, but also I was a son, a brother, and a father. I was a daughter, a sister, and a mother. I was a person, just like you, a real person with hopes, dreams, and looking forward to the future. I wanted to have children. I wanted to watch my children grow. I wanted to see my son score a touchdown or shoot the winning goal. I wanted to walk my daughter down the aisle. I wanted to kiss my wife again. I wanted to grow old with her, and I wanted to be there and hold her when times grew hard. When I told my wife I would be with her till the end, I meant it. When I told my children that I'd always be there for them, I meant that too. But I gave that all away. All of it. On a distant battlefield, on some godforsaken patch of dirt, amongst the fear and the fire and the bullets. Or in the sky above enemy territory filled with flak. Or in the unforgiving sea where we fought against not only the enemy, but the depths of the abyss. There, in those awful places, I held the line. I did not waver. I did not hesitate. I, the soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine, stood my ground and sacrificed my life. My future, my hopes, my dreams, I sacrificed everything for you. On this Memorial Day, remember me, the fallen warrior, and remember not only for my sake, but for yours and your freedom. And I think today that was a very fitting to remember what Memorial Day really is about. It's not Veterans Day, although veterans is a big part of it. It's about remembrance. This time I'd ask you all to please rise for the posting of the colors and remain standing for the singing of the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. Post colors. Veterans, present arms!
Can I move the camera forward? So level?
The national anthem will be sung by Councilmember Ethan Baker, assisted by the Heritage Concert Band.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Hamilton. Guests, please be seated. At this time, I'd like to call up Troy Police Department Chaplain, Pastor Bob Cornwall from the Central Woodward Christian Church, to give the invocation.
Will you join me in prayer? Holy One, we gather together as a community in solemn remembrance of those who have died in service to country and to community. We seek to recall to memory the lives of these women and men created in your image, so that their lives will not be forgotten. We gather to lift up the families of the fallen, those who live with the loss of loved ones, asking that they would find peace and healing. We gather to remember those persons whose service to country and community has left them injured, disabled, experiencing mental distress, and even a loss of faith. May they too find healing of body and mind and spirit. Each of us gathers to remember all our loved ones who have died, remembering husbands, wives, children, parents. May we find solace in calling to mind their legacies. We gather to lift up all those who grieve, asking that your comforting presence will be with them. We lift up these prayers in the hope that peace will one day prevail in our world. We look forward to the time when, as the prophet Isaiah promised, the lion and lamb will lie down together in peace. Even as we honor those who have died and those whose lives have been irreparably altered because of war and violence, we ask that you give us courage to pursue the peace so that the young women and men will no longer be put in harm's way. Amen.
Okay, at this time, we're going to recognize some dignitaries that are with us today. Councilman Ethan Baker, Councilman David Hamilton, former Mayor Jeannie Stein, former Council Member Mary Kerwin, former Council Member Dave Lambert, City Attorney Lori Boone. Let's pause now for a moment of silence in remembrance for those unaccounted for, POWs and MIAs. Thank you. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker, Major Joseph Cannon, U.S. Army. He's got quite an impressive bio, and I would be remiss if I didn't touch on a lot of these great points here. So Major Joseph Cannon graduated with honors from Michigan Technological University in 2003, earning a Bachelor's of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering. He was commissioned through the ROTC program, and he was assigned to the active duty Army as an infantry officer in the 2nd Battalion, 87th Infantry Regiment of the 3rd Infantry Brigade Combat Team of the 10th Mountain Division. During his time with the 10th Mountain, Major Cannon served as a platoon leader, company executive officer, and assistant battalion operations officer. Major Cannon was deployed to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom from January 2006 through June of 2007. He left active service in 2008 and entered service in the Michigan Army National Guard and was assigned to 1st Battalion, 125th Infantry Regiment, where he held command in headquarters and headquarters company in Flint, Michigan, and Alpha Company in Detroit, Michigan. In 2011, Major Cannon was again deployed to Afghanistan as commander of Alpha Company 125 as a part of the 37th Infantry Brigade Combat Team. His unit conducted security force assistance operations in Kunduz Province, Afghanistan. Major Cannon relinquished command in April 2012 and assumed duties as a battalion chief of sustainment. In this role, Major Cannon sustained the 125 infantry during combat operations and redeployment to continental U.S. Upon his return to the U.S., Major Cannon served as a battalion operations officer for the 125, responsible for planning, resourcing, and execution of all training and operations for 811-man light infantry battalion. From 2012 to 2015, from 2015 to 2017, Major Cannon served as a battalion executive officer, and he currently serves as at Michigan Joint Forces Headquarters as a future plans officer.
How do you do that? Son?
Major Cannon has been awarded the Bronze Star Medal, Army Commendation Medal with 3 bronze oak leaf clusters, Army Achievement Medal with Bronze Oak Leaf Cluster, Army Valorous Unit Award, Meritorious Unit Award with Bronze Oak Leaf Cluster, the Operation Enduring Freedom Campaign Medal with 3 Bronze Stars, Overseas Ribbon, 2 devices, Armed Forces Reserve Medal with M device, NATO International Security Force Service Ribbon, a Ranger Tab, HUA, Combat Infantry Badge, Expert Infantry Badge, and Parachutist Wings. Major Cannon was awarded the 2012 Michigan Douglas MacArthur Award and the 2003 George Gillette Marshall Award for Outstanding Leadership. Major Cannon holds a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering, a Master's of Science in Systems Engineering, and a doctorate degree in Systems Engineering from the Naval Postgraduate School. In his civilian role, Major Cannon is known as Dr. Cannon and serves as the Deputy Product Manager for the Vehicle Protection Suites at the U.S. Army Tank Automotive Research and Development Engineering Center in Warren, Michigan. In this capacity, he seeks emerging vehicle protection technology to mature, validate, and transition to the field, which is very important. Major Cannon is married to his wife Amanda, has one daughter, Alexandra, and a son, Quinn. He resides with his family in Lenox, Michigan, where he enjoys hunting, fishing, golfing, and physical training. Without further ado, I invite Joe Cannon.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time today to join us in honoring those who have sacrificed so much for our nation. I'd like to thank, first and foremost, Mr. Mike Kerr, Carmen Melia, Terry Oparka, Cindy Stewart, Colonel Hardin, all for providing me the opportunity to speak today on your behalf. Today I'm going to talk about sacrifice. Sacrifice, not service. Sacrifice is the reason we memorialize this day. We memorialize the ultimate sacrifice paid by so many. Let's unpack this concept a bit. I want you to envision the countless rows of gravestones at Arlington and other military cemeteries across the globe. Not all, but many of these graves hold remains of a soldier, a Marine, a sailor, or an airman who paid that ultimate sacrifice. Some were old, most were young, having only lived into their teens or early 20s. Some were survived by their mothers and fathers, whose loss is almost unbearable to think about. Some were survived by families, a wife or husband, widowed, and left with the immense task of raising their children alone. Sons or daughters who barely knew their warrior parent. Some had none of this because they were never afforded the opportunity to fall in love, never able to experience the magical moments of parenthood. In all these cases, a life was willingly sacrificed for something greater than all of that, something greater than themselves. A selfless sacrifice made so that their parents, their spouses, their children, and their fellow citizens could live in this exceptional nation of unprecedented life, liberty, and happiness. That is what their blood sacrifice purchased. In order to set the scene for the key points I want to make today, I'll first talk about a film that captures the very essence of Memorial Day. This film is Saving Private Ryan. Who here has seen that film? Good. So this, you can relate. That'll be good. In this fictional film, an elderly man is seen walking or leading his family along the English Channel in Normandy. He encounters a sprawling graveyard of tombstones commemorating the dead who gave their lives taking the many beachheads on that fateful day almost 75 years ago. The elderly man collapses to his knees and is consumed by his memory of that war. That elderly man was Private Ryan, whose 3 brothers were all killed during the invasion of Normandy. General Marshall, unwilling to risk sending 4 death notifications to the Ryan brothers' mother, assembled a small squad of 6 elite rangers and their leader, Captain Miller, to extract Ryan from the war zone. While they were successful in their mission, every one of those rangers died. In the final scene of the battle, Captain Miller is bleeding out on the bridge where Private Ryan is rendering him aid. Captain Miller turns to Private Ryan and says to him, "Earn this. Earn it." After this scene, the film flashes forward to modern times, and the elderly man, who is Private Ryan, standing at the foot of Captain Miller's grave, hesitantly turns and asks his wife, "Am I a good man? Have I lived a good life?" You see, he was not confident that he had earned it. He had to hear it from others. He had to hear it from his wife, his family. This man who parachuted into Normandy, who served his nation, who raised a family, who seemingly realized the American dream, was so racked with survivor's guilt that he was unsure if he had earned the opportunity to live, purchased at the price of those 7 men who rescued him. In the film, you see a veteran's family following him at a distance, naively confused at the speed and determination which this father, their grandfather, was walking. Little did they know or understand that if it were not for the actions and the sacrifice of those 7 men, that they may have never existed. The arc of American history and its future trajectory is a direct result of sacrifice such as this. Without that, we would not have the freedoms, the liberties, or the rights we enjoy today. We would not have the greatest economy on the planet has ever seen. We would not be the world's natural leader for good. This state of affairs is directly traceable to all those moments of truth, those moments of sacrifice we memorialize today. Think about this. What if those patriots at Lexington and Concord never fired the shot heard around the world? What if McClellan and his army had not stymied the Confederate advance at Antietam? What if the planners of the Allied invasion of Normandy had assessed the cost of human life too great? At every echelon, from armies of men to the individual, hard decisions were made, sacrifices were made, lives were traded, all which secured our nation's existence for one more generation. Dwell on that a moment. The greatness of America is ours to lose. President Reagan once said that freedom is one generation from extinction. All the progress made, the greatness achieved, the freedom we enjoy, one generation away. I previously spoke about the naive, confused family reluctantly following their veteran into the Normandy cemetery. They did not know of the great sacrifice unknowingly made on their behalf. This echoes into modern society. In the era of this film, over 25% of the population had served. At the time of this film, when it was made, approximately 15% of the population living had served. Now that percentage has dwindled to 7%. Never in our country's history has there been such a divide between those who have served and the general populace. I'm not saying this is bad or wrong, but it causes concern because the burdens of combat, both before and after, are being borne by a smaller and smaller percentage of the population. To make it worse, a warrior class or caste has emerged. The same families serve generation after generation, while other families have not, serving multiple generations. Folks are removed and unaware of the cost and investment of blood and sweat to achieve and preserve our republic. This creates a false sense of comfort where you trade away hard-earned rights and liberties for soft and easy naivety. We begin to divest of our constitutional rights of speech, of arms, of property, for false sense of security. That is a recipe for tyranny, and it is incumbent upon those who continue to live to become educated and furthermore educate the next generation the price for those liberties and those freedoms. It is incumbent on those living to testify in the importance of that great sacrifice that has been made by the past generations. It is incumbent on those living to vigilantly defend the Constitution and all that America stands for, no matter the cost. There must never come a day where the people of this land become completely ignorant of this cost. Nor must there ever become a day where our people are afraid to pay that price or make that sacrifice made by those we honor today. So I'll close with a call to action. In the film, Captain Miller's dying words to Private Ryan were, "Earn this. Earn it." This spoke to those 7 lives given to rescue the one life. that echoes today especially loud on Memorial Day? How can we earn the sacrifice made by so many? I would argue that we can never truly repay or earn that sacrifice. But we can honor it. We can honor it with our actions. We can honor it by serving in any capacity that we are able. We can honor it by upholding the tenets and principles of the Constitution they died defending. We can honor it by teaching our children of that sacrifice. We can honor it by teaching them that no sacrifice is too great for our freedoms. We can honor it by perpetuating the idea of America, that there is something greater than oneself. Those who sacrificed their lives understood this. What makes the American idea or way of life so precious and dear is our ability to live it, now and tomorrow, on our terms, with those we love. That is what so many have purchased on our behalf, and we must never squander that. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for memorializing their great sacrifice. Honor it not just today, but every day, in every way possible. For we have this opportunity tomorrow because they sacrificed there today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. That was spot on. I just can't echo that enough. Okay, at this time, the Heritage Concert Band will now play each military service song. I'd ask you to stand when your service song is played and render a hand salute. Navy. Army. Marine Corps. Air Force. Coast Guard. right, thank you very much. This time we will now conduct the laying of the wreath in honor of all those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Please rise and remain standing for the rifle salute, playing of taps, and the lowering of the colors to half-mast. Veterans, present arms. Order, arms. Please be seated. At this time, I'd like to call up Debbie McLean, President of the POW MIA Committee of Michigan. Debbie?
Good morning, veterans, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Debbie Pinnell McLean, and I'm the president of the Prisoner of War Committee of Michigan. I'm the niece of aviation technician Roland Robert Pinnell, United States Navy, missing in action October 8th, 1967 in South Vietnam. My uncle's remains were recovered, identified, and buried with military honors in Arlington National Cemetery, October 9th of 2007. Many more listed as prisoners of war or missing in action have been buried since him and from many wars, but so many more are still waiting to come home. Today, Americans across this nation and citizens located around the world will take a moment to pause and reflect as we observe Memorial Day. For 150 years, this has been a day of reverence, remembrance, and recognition of the ultimate sacrifice that was made on their behalf. Today, we remember their heroism and sacrifices made by millions of Americans who signed that blank check to serve and fight for the country. Much of the nation has lost touch with the purpose of today, especially those who have no ties with the military. Today we barbecue, we picnic, and we gather as families, but we should take a moment and remember that many died so we could enjoy such a pleasure. We remember those men and women who died in the line of duty, endured captivity and death in enemy hands, as well as those whose fate remains unknown. Your being here today shows the admiration you have for all of these heroes. This past September, we held our 38th annual observance of POW MIA National Recognition Day. I spoke of author Perry Noble, who said, "Every number has a name, every name has a story, and every story matters to God." Millions of people have fought, served, and died for our freedom, and each one of them have a story. Some stories will bring smiles, and some will bring tears. Some will tell you of great encouragement, while others have hurt and heartache. Many times I think of the over 88,000 men missing from our nation's wars. I think especially of the 1,568 who are still missing from the Vietnam War. I wonder what their stories are. I wonder about the 48 men from Michigan still missing from the Vietnam War and their families who still await answers. They have stories. In February of this year, Army Staff Sergeant Marshall Kipina from Calumet, Michigan was identified after listed as missing in action July 14, 1966. Marshall has a story. Every person we come into contact with every day has a story, and their story matters. Not just the story, but the person. How many times do we ask someone, "How are you?" And we really don't care how he or she is truly doing. It has become a nonchalant way of just saying hello. Do we show value to that person by making eye contact and taking the time for a truthful answer? Does that person really matter to you? We are all gathered here today because of the men and women who have died and defended the right for you to be here today. Each one of them have a story. Each story deserves to be told, and each one of them should never be forgotten. For if a name is forgotten, there's no longer a story to be told. So be ready. Show people that their story matters, because it does. Tell others the stories of the men and the women of who we memorialize today. And as you listen to these stories, I want you to think about the little boy or girl who smiled all the time, who was a good student or was the bane of every teacher's existence, who had hopes, who had dreams, who had fears, who hung out at the corner, who sang in the church choir, who cut your grass, who loved your chocolate chip cookies, who hated Brussels sprouts, who dated your sister, who broke your heart in high school, who volunteered, who was drafted, who died, who was taken prisoner, who remains missing and unaccounted for. We are all here to remember and not forget. So the next time you get off a plane, step off a train, get out of a car, step off a boat, or walk up to a crowd of people, ask yourself this question: I wonder what their stories are. And be ready to listen. Be ready to share, and always remember and never forget. Remember, they will not be forgotten if one person remembers them. You can be that one person. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today, this important ceremony in remembrance of those men and women who died in service to this great country in pursuit of our continued freedom. This time I'm going to call up Pastor Cornwall for the benediction, and then our departing song will be sung by Councilman Ethan Baker. He will sing "God Bless America."
It says here, closing remarks and benediction. So I just wanted to make a couple of brief comments as we have gathered here today, just to remember where we are and what has happened in the course of history. I've been watching a number of shows about the 50th anniversary of the Tet Offensive that changed the Vietnam War. I was 10 years old in 1968. By the time I graduated from high school in 1976, the draft was over. I missed the draft by maybe a year or two. The Vietnam War had been over in some form for several years. So my friends, most of them did not serve. Most of my friends did not face the prospect of dying. If I had been born 5 years earlier, maybe I would have been drafted. Maybe I would have gone to Vietnam. Several years ago, my family and I went to Washington, D.C., and went to the wall in D.C. It's an interesting monument, different than pretty much any other monument, because it's simply a black, stark wall. But what it has on there are names, names that shall not be forgotten. And it is good to be reminded that not everyone who served in Vietnam has returned home, that there are still names to be accounted for. So as we go forth today, may we remember them, but also commit ourselves to the pursuit of peace. So would you hear this benediction? You have shown us, O God, what is good. Enable us as we remember those who no longer walk with us in life, to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with you in pursuit of peace in this world. Amen.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you all for attending. Go and have a great time with your family, and let's always remember, honor guard, dismissed.